What we found out as Bitcoiners, and even before Bitcoin, is that many governments treat their citizens worse than tourists. Citizens which are immobile are of course trapped. Usually they have to carry the whole tax burden, the whole regulatory burden of the parasitical fiat classes. The multi-flag strategy means you have a strategic portfolio of flags. In Germany it's still possible to say to the authorities, I'm leaving for world traveling. I'll go on traveling indefinitely. I don't know when I'll come back, but center of my life moves away from Germany and I will no longer be a German tax resident. The general idea of the multi-flag theory is don't wait for utopia, like the perfect place, the liberty place where everything is right. Our insurance is to have the most liquid and mobile form of capital. Some of the best jurisdictions during the pandemic, for example, turned into some of the worst jurisdictions on the planet, and then you're trapped. It has a lot of historical precedents, this idea that even like successful people are stationary. Is fairly recent. The only way to punish bad politicians is not so much voice and voting them out, is exit. If Bitcoiners sell their Bitcoin, in many cases it's for real estate. It's you want to have a house, and I wouldn't do that, and there's a way.
93% of the viewers of this channel aren't subscribed. If you enjoy this content, a like, comment, and a sub really helps my content show up for others too. Thanks so much for your support. We're talking to Rahim Takizaddegan, the Austrian economist. I heard you were busy with a quite interesting project, like building citadels. Could you tell us more about your project?
It's called Citadel.garden. And it's a way to get Bitcoiners the freedom of being a perpetual traveler while having the stability to raise a family and the community for children, and that usually children need. So what I try to do is set up bases around the world for mobile Bitcoiners that could get the convenience of a permanent residence, and so to make it possible that with maybe just moving 2-3 times a year between convenient locations to have all the upside of being a perpetual traveler, which means tax freedom, freedom of regulation, as little as possible touch points with the fiat systems. Without the downsides of being constantly on the road, having to figure out all the logistics of where's the next Airbnb, which can be hard if you have children, and children long for a kind of community. So I think there are some economies of scale. I don't believe in communes where we always agree about everything, like what we'll have for breakfast tomorrow. But we all know that being just on your own and being an individual is not always the best choice. I think we have a responsibility to raise families. I think for many people it's great to build something that needs some roots somewhere, but we have to cherish mobility, and Bitcoin brings mobility of capital. And a good way to make use of the mobility that a good passport provides is have a way to be in a network of people where you can use bases, which means where you can spend and you come back every year, you can leave some stuff, you can use an address and domicile for regulatory purposes, and still be treated like a tourist. Because what we found out as Bitcoiners, and even before Bitcoin, is that many governments treat their citizens worse than tourists, people that bring money and capital to the country. So while there's a competition for the mobile, and there used to be only the wealthiest, citizens which are immobile are of course trapped. Usually they have to carry the whole tax burden, the whole regulatory burden of the parasitical fiat classes. So I'm always looking for ways how can we better use that mobility that technology provides, and that was the motivation for my project.
Very interesting. So those participants would be still not stateless officially, but they wouldn't be obliged to pay tax. and for that they would have to move now and then. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, it's called a multi-flag strategy usually. So for most, there are different solutions. If you have a Western passports and you want the whole security, usually you go for a residency or compliance domicile in a country that has the non-dom status, which does not tax any foreign income. And then you don't have to be in that country, so you need to separate, like, what's the place you spend time at, what's your nationality that provides you the document for travel, and what's your tax domicile. And the multi-flag strategy means you have a strategic portfolio of flags. And I'm looking at like the physical part of where do you spend your time and around which people do you want to spend the time, and what kind of infrastructure do you need to raise a family and for children. And that's usually the most important thing, is have other children around, but you don't want to be trapped in like having your children forced to go into institutions you don't believe in, and in the language that's maybe not that important to you. So you want to avoid to be a citizen and want to be treated as a tourist. So you just have great places around great people that share some of the values you share because they're Bitcoiners, but still have enough kids around in every age group to have an interesting program and playtime for kids around other kids so that they learn in the most natural way, following their curiosity, and have good amenities for the parents as well. So there are some economies of scale of not just figuring out for yourself. Quite a few Bitcoiners have started thinking about like their second residence, their third home, but then of course you need to have a lot of Bitcoin to consider, like selling some of your Bitcoin to then buy an apartment somewhere or a condo another place. So I think that's an entrepreneurial task to provide better value for a lower price for Bitcoiner families.
Yeah, interesting. So let's say if someone is a German resident or a German by nationality, how would that work out? So he cannot be in Germany for a while, but he has to be outside of Germany for how long, and how many times could he go back? What?
In Germany, it's not about the time. You can spend 0 time in Germany and still be considered a taxable citizen. The thing is, in Germany and many other European countries, they try to figure out if it's the center of your life. And center of your life means you are German and you have access to an apartment that's yours. If you have full-time access to an apartment, even if you spend 0 days per year,
that means owning an apartment is...
So you can't own an apartment that's not fully rented out. Anything to which you have key access and can be used by you anytime is considered like enough roots in the country that you are taxed. So you can go back to your home country, but you must go back as a tourist, and you must have good proof that that's your lifestyle. You're just visiting as a tourist, and it's not the center of your life anymore. But in Germany, it's still possible to say to the authorities, I'm leaving for world traveling. I'll go on traveling indefinitely. I don't know when I'll come back, but center of my life moves away from Germany, and I will no longer be a German tax resident. But you have to cut the links, so your family has to come along. You can have your wife and kids still being in Germany. You can have an apartment being there. You can have that maybe like memberships.
You cannot, or you can.
You cannot have something that links you too much to Germany. So. But if you have broken those links, then you, of course, can come back as a tourist, as a visitor. But in Germany, so I don't do a base in Germany. I do bases outside of these Western high-tax, high-regulation countries that afford you an alibi in the sense that those are tourist projects. You are really worth traveling, but you are not living out of a suitcase. You live in very comfortable little villages for Bitcoiners.
Interesting. And then you live there, and what do you do? Is there a program, or everyone does what he wants?
Yeah, you need to be location independent or have independent means, and then you work. You continue your life. Now we have a few locations that are very central, easily located, 10 to 30 minutes to airports, so you can still pursue some activity while being there. But the idea is that your kids, your spouse, even parents, grandparents could spend time there and do a little less back and forth, and then just move maybe every 3 months onto a next location, and then arrange with the other people living there that you find that you move at similar times with a group that you share values or a language with, and have a kind of cohort that moves on. So you want to minimize the stress of moving while maximizing the flexibility. So if you have a location-independent lifestyle, you maybe have a few business trips you still do, or spend a month somewhere on the ground doing your work, then that's the thing for you. So of course, there can be jobs at the place or near the place, but that's not generally the idea. So in order to get the perpetual traveler freedom, you should have a location-independent business.
Perpetual traveler means constant traveler, is that right?
No, that's not just the status. It's like for governments, it's why you call it perpetual traveler. You don't have one domicile because you're traveling. It doesn't mean that you have to travel every day. And you can go back to the same places every year. So that's like the idea. You have 3 bases where you spend 3 times 3 months, and the last 3 months in the year you visit your home, you visit the friends you had, or you do other independent travel. So with these 3 bases, it's enough to be considered a perpetual traveler. You are not a citizen of any place, and then in order to increase your security, in some jurisdictions you need to show them that you have another tax jurisdiction and that you can get in Paraguay or Panama this kind of status, and then you don't have to live there. You can live there, and potentially there be locations as well there, but you don't have to. And for many, it's kind of compromise. Of course, if you found your perfect place on the other side of the planet, Latin America, lots of Germans are moving to Paraguay, for example, but it's not the right choice for everyone. So the motivation for me was to have more bases that are closer to Europe and allow you still some productive engagement and relationships with Europe and Europeans. And that's the idea, go from concentric circles around Central European, outside of Europe locations, and then of course have the alternative locations that are further away to increase kind of insurance idea of your portfolio of bases that you could also change. You're not fixed to a base, it's just an option that you use, and it should be more convenient and more family friendly than having to figure it out individually for each family.
Yeah, so it is not like a fixed program. So I think a lot of these people would like to join are very freedom oriented. So they might want to get in and go out and get in again. Is that also part of the idea, or does the whole system then not work anymore?
No, of course, it should provide complete flexibility. You could have the choice to stay in one location perpetually if you really like it that much and you take the trade-off. Just the general idea of the multi-flag theory is don't wait for utopia, like the perfect place, the liberty place where everything is right. It can be that you subjectively find that place for you, and that can be even Germany. But we have a lot of uncertainty, and the uncertainty is going up. We don't know where geopolitics will lead us. We don't know where the next war fronts emerge. So you got to be flexible, but you don't have to be flexible in the sense, I can bank on nothing. I can build nothing because I don't know where I'll be tomorrow. It's a kind of, or the approach of a Bitcoiner, I'd say our insurance is to have the most liquid and mobile form of capital, but then of course we want to live someplace, and I think there's a good trade-off to be made between the kind of stability it needs to build a business and a family, and the flexibility that's still the best advice. And I wouldn't want to put all the eggs in one basket, because I think that one jurisdiction is the perfect one, because things can change, and we have seen them change rapidly. Some of the best jurisdictions during the pandemic, for example, turned into some of the worst jurisdictions on the planet, and then you're trapped trapped if you like put everything into one politician, one system. So the idea is make use of that mobility and then don't be trapped.
That's kind of also like using a loophole, right? What would be a more positive way of describing it?
No, I don't think it's a loophole. It has a lot of historical precedents. This idea that even like successful people are stationary is fairly recent. It came with industry. Before the merchants usually were much more mobile, and the highest wealth that emerged that also led to culture. A lot of the European culture first started in the northern Italian part, and then a lot of those merchants, when the political situation changed to the worse, they moved on to the areas, the Flemish areas, northern Europe, the North Sea, the Hanseatic League, then the Dutch, then the British Empire. Those attracted a lot of those mobile people that were the entrepreneurs, the merchants of the time. And they didn't move like every day, but they had this mobile outlook to know when their circumstances change, you move on and you have a network. Like you send your kids to spend some time in one location and then they move on or they come back to you and they learn from that mobility. So that was the original approach of the European merchants, and that was also the link that helped European culture to be passed on and preserve a lot of that. A lot of was destroyed in other places. A lot is plundered by the stationary bandits if you're trapped in one location. So you got to use that mobility. And even for those that stay behind, they need people to be mobile because they are like the wolf. That's the only way to punish bad politicians is not so much voice and voting them out. It's exit. It's like you want to have capital and people leave places that are treating them worse to give an incentive to places to treat capital and creative people better. So I think it's not a utopian scheme. I'm very down to earth and very pragmatic. It's just figuring out with all the compromises we have to make what is missing as an offer to make it easier for Bitcoiners to raise families and still not sacrifice the freedom we can still use. So if you want to call it a loophole, that's fine. But I think there are lots of holes that give us optimism as well. I mean, it's still ways to find freedom in an unfree world.
Yeah, it's maybe only more in the context like, do you want to change the situation where you are now? And there are some people who say, no, you got to stay and fight. And other people say, no, well, that's not what I should do, and I'm not going to do that. That was only in that respect. But my question is you tax-free then? You're paying no tax anymore if you do it like that?
Yes, that's possible.
That's pretty interesting. And what's the practical situation? Where are they being built? Are some finished? Are people already living there?
No, the first locations will be finished this summer and the second location next year. And then every year another location is added to the portfolio.
And where are they, or is that not yet to be revealed?
It goes in concentric circles around, starting in the Mediterranean region. Then a beautiful island where a lot of Bitcoin adoption is happening. Okay. There's another location and so on. So we do kind of selection what are seemingly relatively okay jurisdictions for like first have something that's close and easily reachable for Europeans. And then it may be that we change locations afterwards. The idea is to have a portfolio of locations that also can be replaced later on.
So are we talking about Madeira, for example?
Possible.
Possible, yeah. And are there any like challenges you're still facing, or is it going smooth?
No, there's a lot of challenges. I'm surprised how bad the fiat system is. It's surprising. Why? I mean, building something is a lot of touch point. You need fiat finance. You need fiat regulations, fiat permits. You need fiat lawyers, and that's incredibly painful. So I knew, of course, that it was painful. It's always surprising how bad it is. But it also shows that it's not a good idea as a Bitcoiner to do it on your own. It's just, I mean, you have all the pain and no economies of scale. So for us, it makes sense to be rather part of a network where most of that pain is taken for you, and you can just like use it as you would use other services that someone who specializes in, like carrying that pain for you, provides you as a service, and that's the pragmatic approach to offer it as a service, basically.
Yeah. And how big are these communities approximately? For how many people are they?
21 families.
21 families. Okay. Yeah.
But it's just an arbitrary number. I mean, it's this kind of trade-off. It's, of course, there is a lot of capital deployed for that size. It's a small size, but it's about the size where you figure, okay, it's enough kids in different age groups. If every family has 2 to 4 kids, let's say, okay, it feels a bit like a place you'd enjoy to be staying. It's not crowding. It's all in pristine nature. It's all quiet, beautiful locations, but accessible. So it's not like far away. It's not, we are not building something utopian where it would be nice to have autarky and have everything. We are much more pragmatic and like what's a good location for a healthy lifestyle that has as much as possible that you'd need, but still is a good trade-off for most people.
And 21, you said, what role does Bitcoin play as well? Or what other roles maybe?
Bitcoin is financing the whole project, and it does so. Bitcoin is a great collateral, and because I expect that Bitcoin goes up over time. A few Bitcoiners can put in Bitcoin and not sell it for real estate. I've seen if Bitcoiners sell their Bitcoin, in many cases it's for real estate. If you want to have a house, and I wouldn't do that. And there's a way for this project. Has a very good credit line, relatively low interest for a Bitcoin-backed credit, so we can get the fiat to then develop.
It's part of the project.
Yeah. Of course, Bitcoin is at the core of it. That's why I call it like Citadel. It's the Bitcoin Citadel meme. And why is it Bitcoin? Because it's a value alignment. That's why we meet at conferences like that. Is Bitcoiners tend to share a set of values. They tend to be more freedom-oriented. They are cherishing sovereignty, that you're able to, without third parties, hold your wealth, that it's a mobile wealth, that's not fixed, that you're not trapped in a system, and that, of course, being more optimistic usually as Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners have more hope, I think, than other critics of society. You tend to even entertain the crazy idea of bringing kids to that world. If you have a more optimistic mindset, I think that's the main reason why Europeans are not having kids anymore. Is if you think that it will be worse every year, and you think, okay, I'm not bringing in kids into the world, it's getting worse every year. So if you want to bring kids into that world, that's I think that's why Bitcoiners think about like citadels and living and have a good environment where children can flourish and good people can flourish and do their thing and leave alone other people, but still have community, still have interaction. You're not like taking yourself out of the world. So we want to meet like-minded people, want to collaborate. We are looking for a win-win situation. That's why Bitcoin is at the core of that project.
So no Bitcoiners, or they can go there, or they probably won't even end up there. But is that a distinction?
No, I'm not dogmatic. Yeah. I mean, every no-coiner is a not-yet coiner, right? So I think it's more like the self-selection. If you're not a Bitcoiner, usually there wasn't a need for you, and not being a need means that you think that fiat is fine and the structures you're in are fine, and that's why you're not a Bitcoiner. So I think it's a self-selection. So why wouldn't you, as a German who lives in like the best country of the world, the best democracy of the world, why would you move to Latin America? It's like, you must be crazy. It is like absolutely crazy for a fiat person with that mindset. Like, how can you even entertain the thought? It's the number one kind of, or Western Europe, number one place in the world. So I think being a Bitcoiner, of course, is in a way you're skeptical about the institutions and the structures, and you don't trust that it's a good promise there. That's why you're seeking more freedom and more independence from these structures, and that's the self-selection effect of Bitcoiners tending to be more mobile or seeking for ways to do things differently.
Yeah, very interesting. I wish you all the success. Thank you so much for the input. Very interested how it will work out, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks.